Hello and welcome to Got Any Last Words? See it. Oh, God. Hello and welcome to Got Any Last Words? That's CI me.
That's Sergeant White. And what are we doing this week?
We're talking about Mount Everest.
Ooh, brilliant.
We've gone adventure training
I like that.
down that route. Forget planes crashing in space. So let's begin.
Should we just get straight into it then?
Yeah, let's begin. So, Mount Everest is the Earth's highest mountain above sea level. Do you know where Mount Everest is?
It's in Nepal.
Yeah, China, Nepal, runs across the borders. Do you know what mountain range it is part of?
The Himalayas.
The Himalayas.
Oh, I'm knowledgeable, me.
Do you know how tall Mount Everest is?
No.
So its elevation in snow height, so based of the height from the last snowflake, is 8,848 meters.
What does that mean? That from the last snowflake?
Like, not from where the ground is, from how high the snow is. So if there was no snow on Mount Everest, it'd be shorter.
Oh my god, really? I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Well, the more you know.
And this was most recently measured in 2020 by the Nepali and Chinese authorities. They were like, pandemic's going on, we'll just take a quick moment to remeasure this mountain.
The office is quiet. Should we just go?
Yeah. So Mount Everest attracts many climbers. Some of them are highly experienced mountaineers. There are two main climbing routes. Do you know what either of them are?
I genuinely don't. I know that there's something called first camp or something like that. I don't know.
Base camp.
That's what I was, yeah.
That's on every mountain though.
Oh.
That's just the...
I watched a found footage horror film about Mount Everest,
Yeah.
and that's what I learned.
That is just what it sounds like. That is just the camp at the base of the mountain.
So is that the camp that you go to before you start the ascent?
Yes. Yeah. So, one approaching way is to summit from the southeast in Nepal, and this is known as the standard route.
Okay.
The other is from the north in Tibet. So, while not posing any substantially technical climbing challenges from the standard route, Everest is dangerous for other reasons. So, what are the other reasons that you can think of that maybe is the reason Everest is dangerous?
The extreme weather conditions.
Yes, weather.
The fact that the concentration of oxygen in the air decreases as you go higher and higher.
Yeah, and what's that called?
It's called... I do know what it's called. Oxygen sickness.
Altitude sickness.
That was it.
And anything else?
So, extreme weather, the lack of oxygen, is it the treacherous terrain?
It's avalanches.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, kind of, yeah, treacherous terrain.
So, as of 2019, over 300 people have died on Everest, many of whose bodies remain on the mountain.
That's since 2019?
No, like... From 2019.
Oh, right, okay. I was
Yeah.
going to say, like, whoa, that was a busy 2 years.
No.
Forget Corona.
So, do you know who the first person, or where the first people were that tried to climb Mount Everest?
What do you mean? Where
What
were they
nationality were they, yeah? You get one guess.
British?
British!
Hey!
So the first recorded efforts to reach Everest summit were made by British mountaineers. So as Nepal did not allow foreigners to enter the country at the time, the British made several attempts on the North Ridge route from the Tibetan side. So they went out, they did a little reconnaissance expedition in 1921. They reached 7,000 meters on the North Col, is what they call it. So they made it up there. In the 1922 expedition, they pushed up the North Ridge and they made it 8,320 meters.
Wow.
And this marked the first time a human had climbed above 8,000 meters.
Ever?
Yes.
In recorded history?
Yeah, it was easy to break, easy to break records back then because not a lot of people were doing a lot.
Very cool, though.
Yeah. So, 7 porters were killed in an avalanche on the descent from the North Col. The 1924 expedition resulted in one of the greatest mysteries on Everest to this day.
Ooh.
So, George Malroy and Andrew Irvine made a final summit attempt on the 8th of June but never returned. sparking debate as to whether or not they were the first to reach the top.
Right. It's because their body's obviously never been recovered.
They had been spotted high on the mountain that day, but disappeared into the clouds. They were to be never seen again after, so that you saw them go through the clouds and you're like, oh, they're off they go. Until Malroy's body was found in 1999.
Wow.
At 8,155 meters on the north face. So no one knows if they ever made it up.
What if that was him on his way down?
Him on his way down, yeah. So
and how tall is it again?
8,848.
And he was where?
8,155.
Oh, if he didn't make it, that is so close.
Oh, we have lots of near
I bet his reaction on his face is just like, as he's frozen, he's like, because you can just see it in the distance.
Yeah. So, Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary made the first official ascent of Everest in 1953. So when you think about it, we were more focused on the moon before we were focused on Everest.
Yeah.
Like 1953, and we've just thought to climb this mountain, yet there's millions being piled into like getting to the moon. I mean, understandably, the moon is quite exciting. But like, the first official ascent was in 1953.
I would rather go to the moon than go on Everest.
I know, but there's like, I just feel like if it's there, why wouldn't you climb up it? I suppose maybe they didn't know it was that
because it's
big.
dangerous and it's littered with dead bodies.
It wasn't at this point, though. No one had died. So this was 1953, and they were using the Southeast Ridge route. So Norgay had reached 8,595 the previous year as a member of the 1952 Swiss expedition. The Chinese mountaineering team, there was a few of them, they made the first reported ascent to the peak from the North Ridge on the 25th of May 1960. So, what is the summit of Everest?
I don't know.
So the summit of Everest is the point at which the Earth's surface reaches the greatest distance above sea level. So, in the race for tallest mountain, several other mountains are also sometimes claimed to be the tallest mountains on Earth.
But does that depend when the sea levels change?
So, there is a mountain in Hawaii called Mauna Kea, and it is the tallest when it's measured from its base.
Mm-hmm.
And it rises to over 10,200 meters when measured from its base on the mid-ocean floor. But only actually is 4,205 meters above sea level. So the majority of this mountain, over half of it, is actually under the sea. But because we measure mountains from sea level, although it is a taller mountain, technically you couldn't climb it in the sea.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't. That doesn't make sense.
But it is still one of the tallest mountains. If you're
not going to get your scuba outfit on and start at the base, are you?
But if you're going for, it depends if you're only categorizing a tall mountain for the fact a human can climb it. So by the same measure of base to summit, Denali in Alaska, also known as
Mount McKinley, is taller than Everest as well. So despite its height being above sea level of only 6,190 meters, Denali sits atop a sloping plain with elevations from 300 to 900 meters, yielding a height above base in the range of 5,300 to 5,900. So a commonly quoted figure is 5,600. Mm-hmm.
So there are a few other mountains in the mix for who is the tallest mountain, but everyone basically just knows Everest because it's the only one you can climb.
Yeah.
So as I was doing my little bit of research on Everest, I found a little bit about the flora and fauna of Everest. Do you think anything grows on Everest? What grows everywhere? In the depths of a cave. Moss. So there is nothing on Everest other than a moss. And this moss grows at 6,480 meters. And it may be the highest altitude plant species. But to be fair, once people have puffed it all the way up there, they're not rummaging around for bits of grass and stuff.
But did people bring back samples of it and that's how they...
Must have done.
Is it edible?
Everything's edible if you try hard enough.
God.
I don't think it is edible. I think
you probably could eat it. Probably wouldn't kill you.
I'm just thinking in terms of like if you run out of food or supplies.
If you run out of food and your only option is to scrape a bit of moss off a rock.
You're done for, aren't you, really?
So the other little bit of, not necessarily flora and fauna, but a little bit of like, who else is up here? Yaks.
There are animals up there.
So yaks are often used to haul gear for Mount Everest climbs.
Yeah.
So like, you know, you might use a camel, a donkey, yaks. So they can, how much do you think a yak can carry in kilograms?
Oh.
Bearing in mind, you know how much like we weigh.
Maybe like 200 kilograms?
Oh, 100 kilograms.
Oh, right.
Jesus Christ. You're overworking your yak.
I don't know how strong yaks
So
are.
they're really good for moving stuff around because they have a really thick fur, great for cold, and really large lungs. Great for when you're having to carry 100 kilograms worth of someone's kit. So a common piece of advice, which I thought was very funny, for those in the Everest region is to be on higher ground when the yaks and other animals are about, as they can knock people off the mountain if standing on the downward edge of a trail. So these yaks are just like, poof.
What, so do they just naturally live there?
Well, yeah.
Or
They haven't been shipped in.
Is it that people have brought yaks up
No,
and then
I
left
think
them
they're
there?
just...
I don't know. And then they've populated.
Right, so that's one camping mat. That's one camping bag. And
Oh my
are
God,
you
where's
gonna
the yak?
Yeah.
Ian? Ian, we left the yak there.
Will you be placing your yak as a carry-on, or will that be in the hold?
I'm
for your
going to
yak?
lose my yak
No.
deposit.
These yaks just live here, and they've been like, oh, could use that yak.
That's great.
So moss and yaks. That's it.
Is that literally it?
Yeah.
Not any berries or
Well, probably further down, but we're talking like
upper
up.
lack of
Yeah.
oxygen, yeah.
So
Very
in
interesting.
1885, a man called Clinton Thomas Dent, and he was the president of the Alpine Club, suggested that Mount Everest was possible to climb in. He wrote a book called Above the Snowline, and that's when people, I think, were like, "Oh, hello."
They saw the challenge.
Yeah. So the northern approach to this mountain was discovered by George Malroy, as we know, and Guy Bullock on the initial 1921 British reconnaissance mission. So they went out, they were like, we'll just have a little look, see what we need to bring. And that's when they found that route. It was just an exploratory expedition. It was not equipped for a serious attempt for a climb at the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what we do with DFEs, where you go and check the bridge is still there, and like, you know, there's not like a massive bull in the field or whatever. They just wanted to, because this was before the day where you could, like, you know, just Google it.
Yeah.
Like, they were the ones having to actually make the whole trip there to figure out what they needed.
Yeah.
So with Mulroy leading, thus becoming the first European to step foot on Everest's flanks, the legs of Everest, they climbed the North Col, like we talked about, to the altitude of 7,000 meters.
Mm-hmm.
From there, Mulroy kind of figured out a way to the top, but the party was unprepared for the great task of climbing any further and descended.
Yeah.
They
Because
were like-
they just went there to see the lay of the land, really.
They were
didn't
like, you know what, we've done a lot. I think we underpacked.
Yeah.
Let's head back. So they came back a year later. This was clearly the day where you didn't have to work, and you could just be like, board the boat, gentlemen, let's go back to Nepal, Tibet. So the British returned a year later, 1922. So we're here with George Finch, and he climbed using oxygen for the first time.
Right, okay.
He thought, I was a bit puffed at the top here, I'm going to take a canister of oxygen with me. And he ascended at the remarkable speed of 290 meters per hour.
Blimey.
Doesn't seem like a lot.
That seems like a lot to me.
Yeah.
And it's a very steep ascent,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And he
Whoa.
reached an altitude of 8,320. And like we said before, this was the first time a human had been reported to climb any further than 8,000 meters.
That's impressive.
Human. The yaks were chilling. They're just like, what's all this oxygen
It's just
about?
like, you all right, Ian? You forgetting something?
So, Mulroy and Col Phoenix Norton made a second unsuccessful attempt. Mulroy was faltered for leading a group down the North Col, which got caught in an avalanche.
Oh, my goodness.
So he didn't make the best kind of judgment.
Were there any victims?
Yes, that was when the 7
Oh,
porters
right.
died. So he was pulled down, but he survived. But the 7 porters were killed.
God, that's
So sad.
So after that, they were like, you know what? Take next year out. Let's go climb Helvellyn or something. Like, let's do something local.
Let's stay at home and watch people climbing mountains.
Yeah. So the next expedition was in 1924. So the initial attempt by Malroy, all he wants to do is climb this mountain, mate. He's sunk all his money into this.
Yeah.
And Geoffrey Bruce was aborted when weather conditions prevented the establishment of Base Camp 6. Or Camp 6, whatever. They were just making little camps on the way up.
Yeah.
The next attempt was that of Norton and a man called Somervell, who climbed without oxygen and in perfect weather. They traversed the north face onto the Great Coulier.
What's that?
Just a nice little ridge.
Oh, right, okay.
Just a nice little ridge. So at this point, Norton managed to reach 8,550 metres. Although he only ascended 30 metres or so in the last hour. An hour to get 30 metres.
So is that because of the lack of oxygen and
I think just general
exhaustion?
They still hadn't figured out how to do it yet. They were just kind of walking up and hoping for the best. The fact that they had to do the whole 8,000 again, and they're literally every time they're going up, they're just making it an extra 10 metres, but they're walking 8,000 metres up a mountain.
So each time they go, right, so they're making a path, they're forming a path.
They're not making a path. They're just like, that looks safe.
Yes, so a route's the better term.
Yeah.
So like the first person who ever went up Everest, they had to find the most human-friendly route. So as you go further and further up, it must have taken a lot longer because obviously it's a lot steeper. So it was harder to find bits that they could step on that was safe. And
well, I suppose every time you go as well, it's going to look completely different because of the way the snow is.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't be like, right, turn left at the third rock.
Yeah.
They won't be there.
Yeah.
So, Malroy rustled up enough oxygen equipment for one last-ditch attempt. He was like, if I'm going to die on this mountain, I will.
Oh, I'm getting a bad feeling.
Chose young Andrew Irvine and his partner. So on the 8th of June, 1924, Malroy and Irvine made an attempt on the summit. They go via the North Col, the North Ridge, the North-East Ridge route, of which they never returned. But he died doing what he loved.
Yeah, you know what? I bet just before he went, he was like, yeah, I'm glad I did this.
Yeah. I mean, he spent his whole life into this.
And you know what? He got to stay at Everest.
Yeah. So, on May the 1st, 1999, as you know, we found him. So, the Mulroy and Irvine research expedition found his body on the north face in a snow basin below and to the west of the traditional site of Camp 6.
Mm-hmm.
So, he just gone into a little snow basin. So, controversy, like we said, has raged the mountaineering community. Keeps them up at night as to whether one or both of them actually reached the summit 29 years before the first confirmed ascent.
Right. Okay.
So some people are like, he did it. And then other people are like, you've got no proof. He's dead in a basin. We only know this guy's done it.
Yeah.
So, it depends on if
that's really sad. I hope that they proved, I hope that somehow, well, they never will they? But I just want to think, well, he did do it because he achieved his life's work that way.
Yeah. The first confirmed ascent and safe descent, only counts as a safe descent if you get out alive, was by Sir Edmund Hillary. I'm sure you've heard about him. He's a very famous explorer.
The name definitely rings a bell.
Yeah. So, in 1933, Lady Houston, a British millionairess, funded the Houston Everest flight of 1993, which saw the formation of two aeroplanes led by the Marquess of Clydesdale fly over the Everest summit. She was like, I want to go, but I don't want to walk. I'm going to do a flyby. And she saw it and was like, done it. That's what money gets you.
What? So she
just flew over.
She just looked at it. She didn't actually stand on the
She
top.
chartered a plane and she was like, I've seen the top of Everest. Not much to show. Off we go. Sorted.
It's not really the same thing, is it?
No. So, early expeditions such as Charles Bruce's in the 1920s, Hugh Rutledge's, two unsuccessful attempts in both 1993 and 1936 even, tried to ascend the mountain from Tibet via the north face. So access was closed from the north to the western expeditions in 1950 after China took control of Tibet. So
Right.
China took control of Tibet and was like, Westerners, you're not coming in and trying to climb our mountain from this side. Go the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1950, Bill Tillman and a small party which included Charles Houston, Oscar Houston, Betsy Cowles, undertook a exploratory mission to go to Everest through Nepal along the route which has now become the standard route.
Bill Tillman's name. I recognise Bill Tillman as
A lot of these early explorers, expedition people, they've done other things that probably is why they jog your memory.
Yeah.
So, in 1952, the Swiss Mount Everest expedition led by Edward Wisdunant was granted permission to attempt to climb from Nepal. So he's been trying. They're like, please let us climb. They're like, no, please let us climb. Fine. And they established a route through the Khumbu Icefall, which does not sound safe.
It does not. Why would you choose that route?
And they ascended to the South Col at an elevation of 7,986 meters. Do you know what a col is?
No.
It's like a very little circular, like a little, like, it's like if you were to look at it with a contour line on a map, it'd just be like a perfect circle. It'd just be like a little, like if you were just a doop.
Right, okay.
So it almost looks like a false summit.
Okay.
So Raymond Lambert and Sherpa Tenzing Norgay were able to reach the elevation of about 8,595 meters on the southeast ridge, setting a new climbing altitude record.
Right, okay.
So they're still just going for it.
Mm.
So Tenzing's experience was really useful when he was hired to be part of the British expedition in 1953. So this is kind of when Sherpas became a necessity.
Yeah.
So one reference says that no attempt at an ascent of Everest was ever under consideration in this case, although John Hunt, who met the team in Zurich on their return, wrote that the Swiss expedition just failed. In the spring, they decided to make another post-monsoon attempt. So they were like, it just failed. Sorry, we didn't make it.
God.
Yeah. So it was decided quite late. The second party arrived too late, and the winter winds were already like banging against the mountain at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So again, another failed expedition. So in 1953, the 9th British expedition, led by John Hunt,
God, we are keen.
I know, returned to Nepal. He selected 2 climbing pairs and attempted to reach the summit. The first pair, Tom and Charles, came within 100 meters of the summit on the 26th of May 1953, but turned back after running into oxygen problems. 100 meters? They could probably see it.
That is so tragic.
I know.
What, so they ran out of oxygen?
Yeah, it just wasn't safe from the start.
Oh, that, you know what, you'd kick yourself, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So as planned, their work in route finding and breaking trail, their oxygen was a great aid to the following pair because they basically routed it out for them.
Yeah.
2 days later, the expedition made its second assault on the summit with the second climbing pair, and this was Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay. He's up and down this mountain all the time, and a Nepalese Sherpa climber. They reached the summit at 11:30 local time on the 29th of May 1953. They've done it.
Hey!
Yay!
Go on, Norgay.
So at the time, both acknowledged it as a team effort by the whole expedition. But Tenzing revealed a few years later that Hillary had put his foot on the summit first. The cheeky.
Yeah.
He's like, we all up here together, and he slowly slides a toe out so he can be the first one. I mean, how dare
cheek of
I
it.
know. They paused at the summit to take photographs, buried a few sweets and a small cross in the snow before descending. I mean, what do you do when you get up there after that many years?
Well, exactly, especially
Picture,
if you don't have, yeah, if there's-
bury a few lemon sherbets. Down we go. You now have the
just leave a signed photo of yourself.
the record for the highest buried lemon sherbet as well. So news of the expedition's success reached London on the morning of Queen Elizabeth II's coronation. I mean, a way to steal the limelight.
It's like, excuse me, Queen.
I bet
Could you just like postpone?
No, I mean, I bet it just got brushed under the rug. They were like, excuse me, the Queen is getting coronated and you've climbed
That
a
is
large
gutting.
mountain.
It's like, oh, Norgay, we're going to have to go up again.
Yeah.
Just like the day after or something. Do
Just slow down that carrier pigeon.
you have any more lemon sherbets?
So, a few days later,
the Queen gave orders that Hunt, a British, Hillary, a New Zealander, were to be knighted in the Order of the British Empire for the ascent. So she was like, thanks for trying to steal my big day, lads. You can be knighted, though. You can be sirs. And the Nepalese Sherpa, who was a citizen of India, was granted the George Medal by the UK, which I'm presuming is some kind of honorary medal.
Right.
So Hunt was ultimately made a life peer in Britain, while Hillary became a founding member of the Order of New Zealand.
Well,
I know.
wow.
Hillary and Tenzing have also been recognised in Nepal. So in 2009, statues were raised in their honour, and in 2014, Hillary Peak and Tenzing Peak were named for them.
Wow, they have.
Yeah.
Wow, that's brilliant. That's cool.
I know.
I like that.
So in 2006, there was a very bad year for climbing the hills.
Okay.
So 12 people died in 2006. So to go from kind of the people that have been, I mean, a lot of people died in the process of, getting up Everest, but we have these statues of these people. It really does seem to zoom, and loads of people want to start climbing Mount Everest in the early 2000s. Suddenly it's doable. More people,
craze.
More people come up and down than don't come down.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2006, 12 people died. And one death in particular triggered international debate for years and a discussion about climbing ethics.
Right.
So the season was remembered for the rescue of Lincoln Hall, who had been left by his climbing team and declared dead, but was later discovered alive and survived after being helped off the mountain. So his team were like, he's good for dead, him. They carried on climbing, then they got back down and they were like, oh, he's at the bottom with a cup of PG tips alive, and they're like, we're sorry.
That's so bad.
It is. So, the David Sharp ethics controversy of 2006. So there was international controversy about the death of a solo British climber, David Sharp, who attempted to climb Mount Everest in 2006 but died in his attempt. The story broke out in the mountaineering community, into popular media.
He tried to do it on his own?
Yeah, he tried to do it on his own.
He didn't even have a Sherpa?
No.
Oh.
So, there was a series of interviews, there was allegations, there was a lot of critiques going on. So the question was whether climbers that season had left a man to die and whether he could have been saved. So he was said to have attempted to summit Mount Everest by himself with no Sherpa or guide and fewer oxygen bottles than would be considered normal.
Mm-hmm.
He went with a low-budget Nepalese guide firm that only provides support up to base camp.
Mm-hmm.
So actually trekking to base camp for a lot of people is an achievement in itself.
Right, okay.
Because it's not just all flat. It's not like you walk along and it's boop.
Yeah.
Done. So getting to base camp is, for quite a lot of people, a great attempt in itself.
But they would spend the day or however long doing that, and then they would go home because that in itself is a
they trek for however long,
achievement.
7-5 days. I don't know how long it takes to get to base camp.
Right, okay.
Where you start from.
Yeah.
But I'm presuming he used this low budget guide because they only got them to base camp, and he thought, well, I'll get to base camp and then I'll just skip on up the mountain.
Right, okay.
So after they get to base camp, the climbers go up as loose groups, offering a high degree of independence. So they basically say, we'll get you here, and then you can kind of just bump, when you go on a coach on holiday, and they'll be like, all right, we'll take you to this Roman villa, and they're like, just bumble around, have a look, get back on the coach.
See you in 2 hours.
That's kind of what they were doing, yeah. They were
Right,
like, we'll take you here, and feel free to go up as high as you want.
Don't go too far,
Yeah.
okay?
Actually, you can
Because we're
see
going to
us.
be going back down in 2 hours.
Yeah. So the manager at Sharp's guide support said that Sharp did not take enough oxygen for his summit ascent and did not have a Sherpa guide, which we already knew, but he wanted to make it clear. He was like, it wasn't our fault.
This
we
was
told him
not
we didn't have
a
enough
good
oxygen.
idea.
Yeah. So it's less clear who knew Sharp was in trouble, and if they did know, whether they were qualified or capable of helping him.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So, double amputee climber Mark Inglis said in an interview that, with the press, on the 23rd of May 2006, that his climbing party and many others had passed Sharp on the 15th of May. They found him sheltering under a rock overhang that was about 450 meters below the summit without attempting a rescue.
So they said, he was like, I saw him, and a lot of people from my party saw him. He
And
was
we didn't do
450 away from the summit. Yeah. So
is this a different? This is a totally different scenario than the other story that you told, where the people left behind.
yeah, so this is what raised this whole ethics.
So this
problem.
has happened more than once.
So it was very much a thing of like, back when it was first exploring, it was like, right, you have to do what's for the good of the team. If we try and save you, will we end up dying ourselves?
Collateral damage.
Yeah, so what the first thing was, where the man was presumed to be dead but then was rescued down, that was then what sparked controversy here, because they're saying, look, we can get people off the mountain.
Right, okay.
So,
Inglis
said that 40 people had passed by Sharp, but he might have been overlooked as climber assumed Sharp was the corpse nicknamed Green Boots. So all these people were going past and they were like, oh look mate, Green Boots is to the right of us.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But he was not aware that Turkish climbers had tried to help Sharp despite being in the process of helping down an injured woman. So there was an injured Turkish woman there as well they were trying to help down.
Right.
So he didn't know these Turkish people were also trying to help Sharp. There'd also been some discussion about the kind of commentary on English and Sharp in regards to his initial comments. He later revised a certain detail because he'd been interviewed while he was physically and mentally exhausted. So he was like, maybe I didn't walk past him. I was in a lot of pain. I was exhausted. He'd suffered severe frostbite. He later had his 5 fingers amputated. Like, it was like, I wasn't in the state of mind to be doing this interview about whether I could have saved him, basically.
That in itself is sus.
Yeah. So when they later went through Sharp's possessions, they found a receipt for $7,490, and that's believed to be the whole financial cost of his trip, basically.
Right, okay.
So comparatively, can you guess how much it might cost to climb Mount Everest? So you're talking like...
with a high-class Sherpa?
Yeah, so you're talking like your Sherpa, your flights, your equipment, your oxygen, your food. Like, what do you think in US dollars?
And £7,000 is nowhere near enough.
No, well, think about like just the cost of flights and then renting a whole human, and then... I mean, you know how much it costs to like rent a paddleboard for like 2 hours? Like,
I'm going to say £13,000.
So a lot more than that.
Really?
So the most expeditions between £35,000 and some can be $100,000.
And he spent $7,000.
Yeah, so he really did go budget.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm not wasting any money. So, and that's an additional 20,000 in other expenses. So from like gear, bonuses, other things like that.
Yeah.
So it was estimated that on the 14th of May that Sharp summited Mount Everest and began his descent down, but on the 15th he was in trouble, being passed by climbers on their way up and down. So people saw him. On the 15th of May 2006, it was believed he was suffering from hypoxia and was about 1,000 feet from the summit on the north side route.
Right.
So much of the reason this became such a big controversy is because it was captured by the Discovery Channel while they were filming a program called Everest Beyond the Limit. So a crucial decision affecting the fate of Sharp is shown in the program, where an early returning climber, a Lebanese adventurer called Maxim Chaya, is descending from the summit and radios to his base camp manager that he has found a frostbitten and unconscious climber in distress. Shire is unable to identify Sharp, who has chosen to climb solo without any support, and so did not identify himself to the other climbers. So he's just like a loner on this mountain. People are like, is he with you? And they're like, it's not with us. Like, no one knows who he is. It's just a man who's like, because normally you go up with a group. So they couldn't find his group because he didn't have one.
Yeah.
The base camp manager assumes that Sharp is part of a group that has already calculated that they must abandon him. So because people don't climb a lot on their own, the manager must have been like, these people must have just figured out that he's good for nothing. Like, he's not for this world much longer. And
did they not have the resources to help him themselves?
Well, this is the thing. He was 1,000 meters from the top. That's like a long way to climb all the way up if you don't think you're going to get him. It's not like mountain rescue in the UK where you can be like, boop, boop, hello.
Yeah.
by a fern.
That's tragic that
Yeah.
it was caught on TV. That's so eerie.
Yeah. So he informs his lone climber that there is no chance of him being able to help Sharp by himself. So basically, this manager says, don't bother trying to help him by yourself because you're just going to put yourself at more risk.
Mm-hmm.
So Sharp's condition deteriorates throughout the day and other descending climbers pass him. His opportunities for rescue diminish. His legs and feet curl from frostbite, preventing him from walking.
Oh, that is awful.
Yeah. The later descending climbers are lower on oxygen and lack strength to offer aid. So obviously, like, it's kind of like the marathon. The people that come up and down first are the fittest ones. The people that are on their, you know, by the time you've got to the people that are descending at, like, you know, 4 p.m, they're not exactly the, I mean, you've got to be pretty fit to walk up Mount Everest, but you're not like fresh off, you know, not fresh off the ground. You're struggling a little bit. So they don't have the oxygen left. They don't have the strength. And
plus, at this point, if they did rescue him, wouldn't he have had to have like leg amputations and arm amputations?
And at this point, the time has run out for any Sherpas who could have gone and rescued him.
Oh, that is horrendous.
Yeah, so his body remained just below the summit on the Chinese side next to Green Boots. I don't know who Green Boots is. Poor man.
How did they give the corpses names?
Yeah. They shared a small space in a rock cave that was an ad hoc tomb for them. So Sharp's body was removed from the cave in 2007, and according to the BBC, since 2014, Green Boots has been missing, presumably removed or buried. So I presume when they went up for Sharp, they thought, we'll take Green Boots with us.
But wouldn't they have sold them? Wouldn't they have told them?
Sold them?
Not sold them. It's Green
Who?
Boots is on the black market. Well, the people that took Sharp's body, wouldn't they have said, oh, we also took Green Boots?
I don't know.
Maybe Green Boots was a ghost.
Maybe it was.
Maybe Green Boots was Sharp all along.
Yeah. So that's the bit of the ethics behind it. The spring or the post-monsoon window for 2019 witnessed the death of a number of climbers and worldwide publication images of hundreds of mountaineers queuing to reach the summit, and sensational media reports of climbers stepping over dead bodies was dismay to people around the world. So there is like quite famous pictures actually. This is where, like, as I'm saying, like throughout the 2000s, it's just becoming like more and more doable. More and more people can do it. It's more, I mean, not saying everyone has 3,000.
Is it any more doable though?
Well, it is, because like the equipment's getting better, oxygen's getting lighter, like, you know, everything, like the Sherpas, you have to have a Sherpa now. Like, think, like, it's not like you're walking around with like your yak coat on. These are like, you have this kit that's getting lighter, and it means that it's easier for like an everyday Joe that has the physical strength to get up there.
How long do you think it would take for like you and me to climb Everest? Like, how long would we have to
Too long.
train?
Oh, ages and ages, I think. I mean, like they said, the actual climb itself isn't notoriably steep. It isn't notoriably dangerous. It's just the weather and the avalanches and the hypoxia and it's everything like that, which is more likely to make you feel not so great.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact they were just stepping over dead bodies to get there is like...
Nice.
But the thing is, you can't take them down.
No.
At the higher regions of Mount Everest, climbers seeking the summit typically spend a substantial amount of time within the death zone.
Oh, goodness me.
So, the death zone is any altitude higher than 8,000 meters.
Right.
And this is where you face the most significant challenges to survival. So what are some of the things you think?
Steep and difficult terrain to navigate through. The snow.
No, not necessarily steep.
Hypoxia.
Not all
danger of hypoxia.
Yeah. So hypoxia. Anything else?
Wind.
Yeah. What makes like when it's windy? What does it make it even more?
Cold.
Yes. So temperatures can dip to really low levels, and when you get temperature dropping, you get
frostbite.
So any part of your body exposed to air can get frostbite.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you need a wee.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
Bit of an issue. So since temperatures are so low, snow is well frozen in certain areas, and death or injury by slipping and falling can occur.
Oh.
So you can just go.
I'd be done.
So like you said, again, high winds. So winds at these altitudes on Everest can also be a potential threat to climbers. Just get blown off the edge of the mountain. Another significant threat to climbers is low atmospheric pressure. So like you said, kind of about the hypoxia. So the atmospheric pressure at the top of Everest is about a third of sea level pressure, or like a third of like what we're used to, which means you have about a third amount of the oxygen to breathe, which isn't a lot.
It's not, is it?
So the debilitating effects of the death zone are so great that it takes most climbers 12 hours to walk the distance of 1 kilometer. So a sea level dweller exposed to the atmospheric conditions at the altitude above 8,500 meters without acclimatization would likely lose consciousness within 2 to 3 minutes. So say if I took you from like a lighthouse, say if you've lived in a lighthouse all your life.
Yeah.
Or like, to be fair, we live pretty at sea level. I mean, we live by a river, so that's pretty pretty sea level-y, isn't it? And you popped us on Mount Everest, we'd be conscious for about 2 to 3 minutes before we
then we'd be like,
out.
peace.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So an effect of low oxygen is a greatly increased respiratory rate. So the way that your body dictates how to breathe is by how much CO2 you have building up and how much oxygen you have. So if you've got really high CO2 in your body, it needs to breathe out loads.
Yeah.
And if you have low oxygen, you need to breathe in loads. How many breaths do you think you might take a minute?
30?
So yeah, probably somewhere between 17 to 20 is for a normal adult.
Right, okay.
Your breathing would increase to often 80 to 90 breaths per minute. That's like like that.
So you're basically like hyperventilating the entire way.
So exhaustion can occur merely attempting to breathe. Just by breathing.
That's me now, to be honest.
Yeah. So lack of oxygen, exhaustion, extreme cold, climbing hazards all contribute to the death toll within the death zone.
I don't want to be there.
So an injured person who cannot walk is in serious trouble, since rescue by helicopter is generally impractical and carrying the person off the mountain is very risky. People who die during the climb are typically left behind. As of 2006, about 150 bodies have never been recovered. It is not uncommon to find corpses near the standard climbing routes.
Dear me.
So finally, I just want to talk a little bit about... We've talked about the bodies.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the waste.
Right,
on
okay.
Mount Everest. So, the president of Nepal warned that the pollution, especially human waste, has reached critical levels.
There's just poop everywhere.
As much as 26,500 pounds of human excrement each season is left behind on the mountain.
Get out.
Human waste is strewn across the verges of the route to the summit, making the 4 sleeping areas en route to Everest minefields of human excrement.
Oh, that is... I can't...
So
That's
base
a nightmare.
camp for the 62-year history of climbing on the mountain have most commonly either buried their excrement in holes they've dug in the snow, or slung it into little crevasses, or just defecated where convenient.
Slugged it into what?
Crevices. I know crevices. But
I prefer crevasses.
Crevasses. Often within meters of their tents. I suppose if it's that cold, you are just going to drop and go.
Yeah.
So, the only places where climbers can defecate without worrying about contaminating the mountain is at base camp. At approximately 18,000 feet, base camp sees the most activity of all of the Everest, because the climbers acclimate there, they rest there. So in the late 1990s, expeditions began to use toilets that they fashioned from blue plastic 50-gallon barrels. So you know when you go to like those outdoor education places and they've got those big blue barrels, basically them. They were fitted with a toilet seat and they were just like, they could be enclosed off. So the problem of human waste is compounded by the presence of more just general waste. So oxygen tanks, abandoned tents, empty cans and bottles. So the Nepali government now requires each climber to pack out 8 kilograms of waste when descending the mountain. So
that's a good initiative.
Leave green boots, grab that oxygen tank. So in February of 2019, due to the mountaineering waste problem, China closed base camp on its side of Everest to visitors without climbing permits. Tourists are only allowed to go as far as the Rongbuk Monastery. So they're like, stop.
Can I just say, right, I always thought that base camp, now this is probably wrong, but I always thought, when I think of the term base camp, I think it's this lovely little building that's got really nice heating in it. and you start at base camp, get yourself a cup of hot joe, have a little sleep, use a piped up toilet, and then you go from base camp from there, and then you go back down again. But it's just base camps. It's just an area, innit?
This is base camp. I'll show you. For those of you who are listening, you can Google a picture, but it's basically a rock. It's a sheet of rock. That's base camp.
You see what?
It's got some nice bunting. And
I thought it had a little cafe called Base Camp.
Yeah.
And that's where you could get a base campuccino. That's what I thought. It's a shame.
No, that's it. That is Everest. Would you go, knowing all that?
No.
No.
Maybe I'd try Ben Nevis and see how I go.
Yeah, I think it's Ben Nevis the one with the cafe at the shop.
In Scotland. Well, I
oh
hope
no,
there's a
that's
cafe
Snowdon.
Then. Oh,
Snowdon.
I do both of them then.
Yeah, there's a cafe at the top.
You can get a biscuit that's called a Snowdon biscuit, and it's got icing on it. It looks like it's been snowed on.
Oh, that's cute.
Thanks for listening to the podcast.
Well, that's Everest.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. There's so many facets to Everest which you don't even think about, such as, I mean, I've heard things about the bodies.
Yeah.
But it's the waste.
Walkers' ethics as well.
Walkers' ethics. Fascinating. Fascinating stuff. So thank you for that, Sergeant White. That was really interesting. And thank you to all of you listening for tuning in this week. Make sure you follow us on Spotify. We release this podcast every single week. And we'll be doing things related to our syllabuses for cadets, but we're also going to be doing something a little bit different sometimes, such as the one you heard this week. We love researching our own topics and coming up with new and interesting things for you to listen to. And we hope that you keep listening. So thank you very much for listening. Ta-ra.
Bye.
Bye.
Crevasses.
Crevasses.
Thank you for listening to Got Any Last Words, a weekly podcast for Air Cadets, released every Friday. Got Any Last Words was written, produced, and presented by Sergeant White and CI Me of 361 Gated Squadron. Sound effects by Motion Array. Podcast theme is Grow by KV.